How's it going, guys? What of course you'll be seeing today as you take a look at this lag here before I start. This is a frequent issue I have that I've been playing in the Dragon's Teeth maps. But what, of course, as you've seen by the title, what I'll do is break down everything in my preliminary thought process with regards to weapons, the levels, how they play, and everything about Dragon's Teeth, the DLC. And I've given it a fair shot. I've played it for weeks now. I've played all the levels multiple times in different game modes, so I get a good feel for how they play, how they progress, etc. But I will break it down. This is the Roar, however you pronounce it. Basically the battle pickup that you can use as the mobile robot. It will get obliterated quickly. But the lag there wasn't specific to my ISP. You guys know my internet's terrible, but in this case it wasn't, because right after this match was over, I put in I tried out Counter-Strike to see if it was lagging as well, and it wasn't, so it was specific to the servers. But unfortunately, I am having that issue where it seems as if it doesn't matter whatever server I'm joining with regard to Dragon's Teeth, I tend to get a lot of that frequent lag spike issues. So I'm not sure if that's specific to the DLC, if hit detection and quote-unquote netcode issue became an issue after the latest patch. I'm not sure. Since the latest patch, I've had more issues than beneficial games with those lag spikes that get me killed a few times, as you'll see. But I'm not going to make excuses. I'll go on about it anyway. What I'll do, of course, is break down what I meant by talking about everything on it. And first, I'll start with the weapons. Of course, we got the Unica 6, the Deagle, the CS5, the MPX, and the Bulldog as the weapons. The MPX I don't really use very often because I just don't use PDWs for the engineering class. For the most part, I'll use shotguns or I'll use carbines. So it won't get frequent use. In one of the previous reviews I did for it, though, I did talk about how it's a very manageable weapon, but I just don't see it as good enough to replace like the SR2 or the MP7, because those were the two I'd basically use. So that's my thoughts on that. The Bulldog is a monster, as you guys know already. They did nerf it a little bit compared to what it was in CTE, where it was basically an all-ranges, jack-of-all-trades weapon that you could obliterate anyone with it. But over range, it tends to suffer a bit more, so it's more a medium to short-range monster, and you'll see it used quite a bit, and anyone who plays Dragon's Teeth knows you'll see it quite a bit, so you have to account for it. But it's a good weapon. The CS5 I'm actually not as impressed with. It's a good weapon, don't get me wrong. Its statistics are basically similar to those of many of the other sniper rifles, but that's the problem, is that it doesn't really have anything that makes it stand out, so to speak. I would classify it as a pretty damn good close-range, aggressive recon-style weapon. The Gold Magnum, and maybe, say, the M40A5 or the L96 would be your close-quarter style weapons that you'd probably choose, but I don't know, the CS5 doesn't stand out to me, so to speak. There's nothing glaring about it that would make me want to choose it over, say, the M98B, the Gold Magnum, or the M40A5. So that's the thoughts on that. The Unica 6 I don't like as much. The reload animation just is so disturbingly long as maybe just a point of balance. I'm not really too sure the logic or the reasoning behind it, but for that reason, it doesn't stand out to me. I don't use it. And the Deagle, of course, many people are going to argue it's overpowered, but the thing is a monster, as you might expect. A lot of people jokingly called it basically the next primary weapon, so, again, that'll sort of give you my thoughts on it, too. It's sort of the no-brainer choice for a sidearm. They sort of deleted the point of... By putting in the Deagle, they basically sort of defeated the point of using the other sidearms unless you wanted to be the person that uses the other sidearms just to not use the Deagle. Like, that's how good it is. In terms of the gadgets, I feel the ballistic shield was over-nerfed. At first, it was far too strong in CTE back in the day, but now it's over-nerfed. Now, I find using it's basically going to get myself killed no matter what angle, and even if you're with teammates a lot of the time, because the glass sort of breaks, at least inconsistently that I find myself getting killed far too much with it. And taking 3 hits to kill someone is, well, far too much, considering that most people are using the Bulldog or something like that. Get you in a close quarters environment, get you to overreach or charge at you, shoot the legs, and it's over. So there's a bit of an issue with that. I feel it's a little underpowered now, but again, maybe we'll see how that plays out. In terms of the maps, I really, really like Pearl Market. Not a lot of people do. A lot of people, I felt, especially when I'm reading on the Reddit forums field, there's just so many different angles you have to account for. The elevation changes, the nooks and crannies where people can hide and wait out for you to turn the corner. Pillaring, all sorts of pillaring, peeking. There's just so many different areas and environments and different elevations to take cover with, which makes it, well, a pain in the ass to some people. And that's fine, because a lot of the times I play this particular map, I don't statistically do well, especially in Chain Link, because Chain Link, as I've said, I've really enjoyed it so far. I didn't expect it to be as good as it was going to be, at least on preliminary thoughts. But again, my thoughts on Chain Link are that I like it as an addition. I feel it is a little bit fast right now, but I feel as long as they add larger ticket servers and the time limit doesn't disrupt it, then that's an easy counter for it. That's not a big issue. So I have enjoyed Chain Link quite a bit. But going back to what I was saying, this map pro market goes very well with Chain Link. As long as you aren't on a team that's horribly, well, terrible. Because right here, this is the only problem I run into that I've had problems with, is if the other team gets all of the higher up elevations, then they can shoot you before you even leave the spawn. So as long as you have one or two of the upper level flags, then it's not a big concern. But overall, I do like the frantic balanced pace. Putting the flags on the top I thought was a really, really good idea, because that way you have two different elevations you can engage in fights with. Lamphini Garden I like too. The environment's wonderful. My biggest issue with it though is, for the most part, I think it's if you start on the side that basically has, I forgot what it is. I'm pretty sure it's the American side. Maybe I'm wrong. But if you start on the side that basically starts in the urbanized environment with all the buildings, apartment buildings, etc., versus the part where you start already in the garden, if your team doesn't immediately cap B, like say in Conquest mode, you're in serious trouble, because there's maybe 2 or 3 spots where you can actually avoid being constantly shot at and suppressed. So as long as you can get B, it's not a big issue. But if you can't get to B quickly, then yeah, it's basically a spawn trap waiting to happen, and that's the biggest issue I have with that map. That, and funny enough, it's a garden, but there isn't really an awful lot of cover, I find. Like, elevation changes are basically the cover for it. If you're sitting on the edge of a bridge, you can basically sort of head glitch the area and use elevation and terrain as your cover. But that being said, there aren't a lot of cover places. There aren't a lot of trees. It's mostly just little shrubs, but of course you can just shoot through them, so it's not a big concern. But I find, yes, this map does have a balance issue, especially if you have a bad team, in terms of both getting spawn trapped. A lot of the time I find if I start on the one side, like I said, that's urbanized with the bridge to try and cross over into the garden, a lot of the time you have big issues actually getting out of that area. So the next one, of course, Propaganda. I agree with the consensus of all the people playing it, and that basically it's a fantastic map. I find it's well balanced. Despite it being a linear map, there's tons of cover free to use. There's tons of areas where you can keep yourself obscured without actually using cover, like higher shrubs, multiple different higher than the character model cover, which is nice. And of course there's flank lanes that are linear based on each side, left and right of the actual center map. So I think it was a very well designed map, and a lot of the matches I get into are very frantic, fast paced, but you don't feel like you're going to get spawn trapped if you screw up early on. It's a decent map. But on the opposite end of that, the last map, Sunken Dragon, is a big problem. I find if you're on the side that basically starts on the ship, which basically, I forgot the side. If you start on the one side that starts with the ship, where you're basically trying to fight back toward the urbanized apartment building style area, that's a big issue, because a lot of the time I feel most people get spawn trapped on that side, because especially if you're playing Chain Link, there's two cap points at the bottom, and then you have to fight your way uphill to get to the urbanized area where there's 4 of them. The other team can capture 4 flags before the other team even has a chance to get to the uphill to capture those flags. And you could argue, yeah, well, they could take the bridge across, but a lot of the time a smart team will already knock that bridge basically out as an option. So they're forced to climb uphill in an area that's just already suppressed and locked down. If they opened up the bridge on the left side, the very left side of the map, then it probably would be a pretty decent compromise and maybe make it more balanced. But 4 flags on one area of elevation versus 2 on the bottom, which you have to climb up for, is just, logically speaking, not going to be conducive for success for that area. So that one I feel does have some balance issues that hopefully can be fixed out. But like I was saying, lag and hit detection have been an issue for me in the Dragon's Teeth servers. Maybe it's my problem. I've heard it isn't from multiple other different reports, but hopefully that'll get fixed. But in terms, like I was saying there, I feel that Lymphini Garden has some balance issues potentials, but for the most part it plays well when the teams are balanced. But Sunken Dragon just has some big balance issues. I find even if you are a good team, you can still get spawn trapped just based on how the environment looks. So that one has the biggest issues. The destruction as my last point seems pretty good. I feel they gave up some of the bigger Levolutions to give up for more destructive environments, which I'm fine with. I can agree with that compromise. Overall, though, I really do like these urban environment DLCs. I've really enjoyed these maps.